Move in the name of Honorable Mohammed is amply justified. And before I come to the main thrust of this motion, let me remind our friends on the other side of the House that they cannot suffer from selective amnesia. And they dare to talk of ethical leadership. Let me remind them of the colorable device that was used to unseat a leader of opposition, or the majority which they could not muster when they circulated the bill on to unseat a holder of a constitutional post. I have in mind, of course, the Public Prosecution Commission bill. So we have no lessons to learn from them, but they have to be decent and the truth has to be spelled out. The process was initiated and there was due process that was followed. To come and say that there was an attempt at political vendetta, smear of a campaign which they are trying to wage inside this House and outside, and it would stand. What have we learned? That there was a commission of inquiry, the findings of which have been spelled out, the salient features of this commission of inquiry. And they cannot remain as if it's something that they don't want to hear of. They have to be sensitive to the findings of this commission. These are the naked truth. The commission was chaired by a former Chief Justice, not by an agent of the Labour Party, Madam Speaker. And there was another finding submitted to the President, which confirmed that there was every reason to remove Mr. Dayal as police commissioner. These are facts based on sound evidence dispensed by two former Chief Justices and nobody less than two former Chief Justices, Madam Speaker. So what are we saying? We are saying what others are saying. The common men in the street, the lawyers, they are saying that wrong advice was dispensed to Cabinet by the Attorney General. And this is a statement of fact. He cannot run away from this. There is evidence of conflict of interest. And in a Cabinet, when you have to disclose, you have to make sure that this disclosure is mandatory. When there is conflict of interest, you cannot shy away and run away from your responsibility. Prime Minister was in Cabinet. And of course, he disclosed the interest that he had in a particular case. The Attorney General, knowing perfectly well that he was the lawyer of Mr. Dayal and was an officer of the State Law Office, standing next to late Mr. Bakorali, should have disclosed this information in Cabinet. So don't come and say that, there is no conflict of interest. There is conflict of interest, and they cannot run away from this, Madam Speaker. But then, this is also a politically loaded case. And I ask the simple question, which is being asked by the common man. Had Mr. Dayal not been a member of Parliament, would he have been dispensed this special favor? What is true for Mr. Dayal should be equally true for those who have submitted who have submitted the cases for fair compensation. This is a statement of fact. Go and talk to the common man and ask them whether they would have the same treatment that was dispensed to Mr. Dayal. And the action of these victims are justified because in their cases, the cases were lodged on time before the Supreme Court. And the precedence of entering a case outside the prescribed time limit is wrong. It is wrong. And we know that there are many cases against, in all cases filed against the state, the SLU has always successfully taken the objection of the time frame within which a case must be filed against this government. So let me come to what the Deputy Prime Minister has stated. He gave the impression that we were hitting at the mediation court. And yet he knows very well that parties come to settlement and the judge act accordingly. It is the parties which so decide. And this is a statement of fact. Another point that was made, Madam Speaker, when we say that offer was made, but we also know, but we were also told that Mr. Dayal rejected the offer. If he had rejected the offer, how could it have tied the hands of the Attorney General? And the Attorney General did not give us the reasons as to why he renewed the offer. An offer to pay an ex gratia payment is not a recognition that the state is liable to pay damages. And as Honorable Mohammed is saying, this is what ex gratia means. And worse, we were taken aback and shocked when Minister Mento cast aspersion, when he cast aspersion on the excellent work that the Commission of Inquiry had done. There was no question of political vendetta, Madam Speaker. So the arguments do not stand. As I've said, why is it that this compensation is being paid now? And I stated earlier, why is it, or I asked the question, why is it that it was not done when they were in government in 2000 to 2005? Is it because the honorable member was not a member of parliament? And we have every reason to say that because Mr. Dayal threatened to resign, that finally they had to come to terms with his demands. He threatened to resign, and this would have provoked a by-election. This is a fact. And in doing so, he negotiated a wholesale package. And he negotiated a wholesale package. So don't come and say that people is indifferent, is insensitive, they don't know what is happening. So the mover of the motion is right to come and say that there is every reason, to say that the Attorney General has failed as legal advisor to government. And it stands to reason. It stands to reason that he should have conveyed apologies, but instead he chose to seek elsewhere. So the point that we are making, Madam Speaker, that the mover of the motion is right. He has every reason to move the motion based on substantial evidence in the light of the findings of the Commission of Inquiry. irrespective of the vote which is going to be taken in the House. The people outside know the truth. When you talk to those who are waiting to be compensated, whose cases have been lodged, you go and talk to them, and they will tell you that in their case, the law applies, and they are being told when they submit outside the time limit that their cases are non-receivable. So you cannot have special favor for one simply because the person is a member of parliament, and you have and you treat the mere mortal as people who cannot flex their political muscle, and therefore we can afford to neglect them. So that's why the 15 million rupees is not justified. And I have in mind the case of a diplomat who sued government for negligence because he fell off a balcony. And he was a diplomat working in Delhi. He fell off the balcony of the apartment that belonged to the state, and we know that his claim has been reduced to a nominal fee. And this is a statement of fact. So I've highlighted one specific case, but when you talk to the number of people who have been made redundant deliberately because they cannot flex their political muscle, because they don't have the political clout, because they can't provoke a by-election. So these people, they are treated simply not with contempt, but they are treated as if because they are mere mortals. My plea, Madam Speaker, we are not going to convey any apology. We stand by this motion. It is not because they have the number of the House that they have won over the people. The people have so decided, and the people are with us on this motion because government has failed, and has failed abysmally, to convince the nation that Honorable Dayal has a case. He stands to fail, and on this issue, government fails together with him. Thank you very much.